And we'll continue to drop the link in as you are coming into the meeting. Please go into the chat, sign in to today's session. This is the Wayne Risa Summer Blitz. This session is MTSS, Maximizing Tier 1 Instruction, a pathway to learning for all. Again, Summer Blitz, every day in the month of August, every weekday, Monday through Friday. You will have access to live and pre-recorded professional learning. Welcome to those of you just joining us. Every day in the month of August, you will have access to live and pre-recorded professional learning to support your practice in the field of education. We are so grateful that you are here. Kathy will continue to drop that link. Please sign in so that you can get sketches, but also so that we have an accurate track of who joined us today. All right. So I am Vanetta Clark Tools. I'm an educational improvement consultant at Wayne Risa, where we provide equitable services to all districts and schools across Wayne County, with particular focus on those that are identified by the state of Michigan for additional support. I want to take this time to invite you to get your learning tools, be they analog or digital. So if you want a good old-fashioned pen and paper to take notes, because we are going to, in addition to having some robust conversation, be writing some things down. And so if you are a digital native or you prefer a digital platform to facilitate your learning, please ensure that you have that resource as well. Welcome again. At any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute, raise your hand if you can, or if not, just come off mute, and say, what you need to say, ask what you need to ask. We are here co-learning together. I am merely facilitating that learning. My hope is that is one of the ways that you, employ Tier 1 instruction with your students, is that, you do not always have to be the one who is talking, that lots of learning happens through questioning and curiosity. Welcome. If you are just joining us, please come on in. There will be a link in the chat for you to sign in as we capture attendance. Thank you again for joining us. It's the summertime. You could be anywhere, but you're choosing to be here. And so for that, I thank you. And again, if you prefer learning tools that are analog, pen and paper, or if you are using your computer, iPad, smartphone, tablet to capture information, we invite you to do that as well. So let's get started. We're going to jump right in with your data dashboard. I want you to rate your readiness for adult professional learning and engagement right now. How do you feel, right? You registered for this thing, and then some of you showed up, right? Everybody didn't show up. And so as you think about how you are showing up today, think about what you need to be a good learner situated in your space. Think about what you really want to get out of this session. Consider what you might be ready to take away right now and what you might be building on for the future. Additionally, consider rating your knowledge, understanding, and application of MTSS principles in your context. So I know that we have at least one consultant on the line, but I imagine we have teachers on the line. We might have school leaders on the line. So if you could please drop in the chat your role, like how you show up in education. Drop that in the chat right now, please, if you could. What is it that you do in education spaces? Let's see who's here with us. And while you're doing that, Finally, rate your excitement to implement some new strategies, activities, and ideas, learning opportunities that you can add to your instructional toolkit, whether they are for adults or students. All right, so we got director of academics, a leadership coach, teacher. We are running the gamut here, and I love it. Multilingual teacher, absolutely. Yes, helping our babies work through their rich language culture. That is an asset to speak more than one language. I wish I knew any of them fluently. I speak a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But for our students who are multilingual, that is an asset to embrace. All right. So, yeah, draw yourself a little meter that measures your capacity for engagement in the three questions above. Give you a moment to take care. And a principal, welcome. Yes, we've got all the things: consulting, teacher, central office, and a school leader, principal. I'm excited. And if you wish to, and a coach, beautiful. And if you wish to share this information with your colleagues, it will be recorded, or I should say it is being recorded. Those recordings will be posted to the Wayne Risa website, and you will have the opportunity to share the link to this recording and all of the recordings for our summer blitz through Wayne Risa. All right. Anybody want to share their data dashboard? How are you feeling? How are you showing up today? What do you need? What are you looking for? Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. There is a link in the chat for you to sign in and let us know who you are and that you've made it. Also to provide you with sketches for this session. We're going to move away from this question. I don't hear any takers, and that's fine too. Sometimes you have to wait for folks to warm up, or maybe you want to put it in the chat, how you might have assessed yourself and your readiness for learning. All right, so here are our purposeful learning objectives for today. We want to take Tier 1 to the max. So we're going to build on our current knowledge. What do we already know about MTSS? What do we already know about good teaching and learning principles? We want to identify and practice high yield and high leverage instructional moves, things that you can use immediately in the classroom. And then finally, we want to transfer knowledge and skills into action. So we're going to do some practice in this short hour, 51 minutes now that we have left to do our work. When you look at this image, in what ways is this teacher employing Tier 1 instruction? It's just a snippet. You see a teacher, you see kids in the background, you see some stuff on the wall. What about this picture tells you that Tier 1 instruction is happening? And again, you can come off mute or you can share that in the chat. Yes, the visuals on the wall. And those visuals go beyond just recycling, right? Because rethink, the K is cut off, but that word is rethink, refuse. What might you refuse? Reduce, repurpose, reuse. Those are all principles of recycling. And when we have walls that talk, our students are able to learn even when nothing is being said. Students need a rich learning environment where they can see some things that they can connect to that gives them something to think about. The idea around Tier 1 instruction is that we are laying the groundwork. We are creating fertile ground for students to think about all of the ways that they might enter into learning in our classrooms. All right, so MTSS overview really quickly. We're not talking about Tier 3 today, that intensive, pull out, push in, small group. We're not talking about Tier 2, targeted instruction. Today, we are really looking at Tier 1 instruction, which is intended to serve every student. So I'm glad that we have a multilingual teacher here today. I'm glad that we have a coach here today. I'm glad that we have all of the different roles represented, because many times we forget that Tier 1 instruction really is meant to capture high quality learning through high quality classroom teaching for every student. And so even in Tier 1, we should be differentiating instruction. Even in Tier 1, we should be using small group. And it requires us to look at data in order to be able to do that. Good Tier 1 instruction must have proactive relationship building. You have to know your students. You have to know their needs in order to be able to truly reach them so that you can teach them. And most importantly, and my favorite thing, is ongoing formative assessment. So we'll do a little formative assessment now. How many or who is the recipient of Tier 1 instruction? Who is our Tier 1 instruction intended to serve?
Everyone, all
All
students.
students.
Everyone, all students. And if we are going to reach everyone, that means we have to have multiple modes of teaching everyone. We've got to have the verbal communication so that students are hearing what we're saying. We have to have the visual communication so that students can see what we're saying. And then it is good to have some representative, tactile, concrete representation of what we're saying. So who has a ball or a pie or a glass half full, right? That would be representative of all, or 100%, right? When we say all means all. And so you can't buy a bucket of chicken that has 20 pieces, but then you eat two and you take it and say, oh, here's a bucket of, all the chicken. No, it's missing two pieces. So we've already eliminated the opportunity for two choices or two options to be utilized by the whole of the group, right? Even as we're teaching fractions to students, all means all. And so we want to make sure that we know all of our students well enough so that we can meet their needs. You're going to have high flyers. You're going to have students who are right at grade level, and you're going to have students who are below, no matter where you are, suburbs, urban, rural, and our job as good Tier 1 instructors is to ensure that we have something for each one of those students. I want to probe you a little bit. What do you think is the best way to establish strong, high quality Tier 1 instruction? What's a good start?
Backwards planning, standards-based lessons, and planning for scholars using what you know about their background data.
Pack it up, can it, and let's go home. That is absolutely it. That backwards planning, knowing what you're going to teach, having your questions pre-scripted, thinking about answers that students might give, right? Anticipating what students might say. All of those things are critical to providing good Tier 1 instruction. If you haven't really thought about how your students might answer, what questions they might have, words that they might struggle with, facts that they might not yet know, math computation skills that they might not yet have. By anticipating those things and planning for them, you prepare for all of your students. And you've even got something, like I said, set aside for those students who know the lesson as soon as they walk in the door. They know it, they've done it before, they've experienced it, they can explain it, they could probably help somebody else. So they need something more and different. And then you're going to have your students for whom the lesson is just in time for them. And then you're going to have some students for whom you need to break it down a little bit more. You need to maybe use words that they can, at their listening comprehension level, that they can really sink their teeth into. So thank you for that answer. I'm sorry, is it Sandra or Sandra?
Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra. That was a beautiful answer, right? So you've got your high quality instructional materials. You have looked at those things, planned out a beautiful lesson. You have your assessments ready to go. You've got some questions prepared. And then Narit says being proactive and differentiating. Yes. All of those things that Sandra described are a part of that. So thank you all for reiterating the ways in which we get to this high quality classroom instruction for powerful Tier 1. So Tier 1 is for everyone. You've all already answered that. In order to get to Tier 1, there are 4 big buckets or 4 big ideas that I like to think of as it relates to getting everyone involved. Active engagement, right? Nobody wants to come into a dry, boring classroom. And I'm not saying that you have to dress up like, in character every day, or that you have to, entertain kids, but you certainly need to pique their interest. You need to give them something that they can sink their minds into. And that's where that active engagement comes from. How are you relating this back to them? How are you helping them make connections to what you're teaching? Varied levels of challenge. We talked about you're going to have high flyers, you're going to have kids who are right at grade level, and you're going to have some students who are below. And you need to be able to meet all of them on some level where they are. And that happens with good planning. Explicit instruction. Be clear about what it is you want students to know. Ask clear questions and have multiple ways to ask a question. So if we ask, what color is the bubble that says active engagement, and students don't answer, you need to be able to take a scaffold question and say, well, what are the 4 colors of bubbles that you see? Maybe they can't read the word active engagement, and so they're not going to answer. So scaling back and scaling down and thinking about various ways to ask different questions is important, or to state directions. You have to give students options because they are coming with different entry points. And then intentional feedback. Like, good job is not good enough. We have to tell students why their answer is good, why it makes sense, how it connects to the standard. Maybe they answer something that gets ahead of the question, not right where you are. And so you want to be able to give intentional feedback that helps students to circle back to what is most important in your instruction, in your teaching. So I asked you when you first joined, and I know a few folks joined a few minutes late. So take a moment to gather your analog learning tools. If you are a writer, you need pen and paper to process. Or if you are using digital tools, you have your computer, you have your iPad, you have your smart device. Get that thing that you are going to use to manage your learning for today. And I want you to answer this question. What are the characteristics, looks like, sounds like, feels like of the practices listed above? Generate a list of one look, one sound, one feel for each practice. So under active engagement, I think we lost someone. Maybe they'll come back. I want you to challenge yourself to generate a list of one look, one sound, one feel for each of these practices. And try not to use the same word or phrase for each practice. So what does intentional feedback look like, sound like, feel like? It could be from the perspective of you as the educator. It could be from the perspective of the student. And do that for each of those 4 buckets of engaging or tier 1 instructional practices: active engagement, varied levels of challenge, explicit instruction, and intentional feedback. What questions might you have about the task that I am asking you to perform? Okay, hearing no questions, I am going to use my context clues and infer that everybody is clear on the task. I'm going to be quiet and give you a few minutes to complete that task, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. All right. 10 seconds, winding down. All right. Oh, go back. So, is any brave soul wanting to come and share their answers? What's your look like, sound like, feel like?
I'll share my responses for active
Thank you.
engagement. Um, what it looks like, it would be students actively discussing, they could be writing. Um, every student has an opportunity to participate. It might be whiteboarding, think, pair, shares, collaborative tasks. I like to use accountable talk. So they're having conversations about the topic, explaining their thinking, challenging one another, justifying thinking. So we would hear, some energy in the room and chats. And the teacher is requiring reasoning, and hopefully this results in everyone feeling valued and membership in the classroom.
Thank you. That is beautiful. I appreciate your engagement and participation, because those are the things that students need, in order to be engaged, listening, speaking, writing, dialogue with one another, having think tasks and active tasks that they can engage in order to, truly be active participants in their own learning. So thank you for that. So I pre-populated some answers, and I wanted the timer to go away. There. So active engagement, controlled chaos, rich dialogue. Students are happy and joyful. Multiple points of entry for the action or activity that they are being asked to do. Students are asking questions. Students may need additional support, um, and they may not. They may be able to support others, as we've talked about before. That explicit instruction. The directions are posted in lots of spaces and lots of ways. Um, you can get students to repeat the directions. That's not something that I ask you to do, but I could have. Um, and students understand the expectation. They're clear about what they're being asked to do. Many times we go into classrooms and students aren't not sure what it is they should be doing. And so because of that, they can't complete the task because they are not clear on what they're being asked to do to begin with. And then that intentional feedback. The teacher is walking around, observing students. Again, students are asking clarifying questions, and it feels like learning is happening. What does that feel like? It feels like a community, right? Community of learners. That's always the hope and what we want. A safe space where students can feel free to ask their questions, free to take a chance at answering a question, whether their answer is correct or not. It's the idea that they are thinking, that they are trying, that they are participating and engaging. One of the things that I asked you to do, and I want to reflect on this really quickly when we first got here, and some may have missed this, was this idea of assessing your ability or your readiness for learning. How often do we assess our students? Giving them a low risk task like a data dashboard, a toggle switch. Are you happy? Are you sad? Did you have a good day? Are you having a good morning? How did your day start off? That helps us. That's formative feedback that lets us know whether or not our students are ready to learn. And that's important for them to be able to articulate their readiness for learning, because it cues you as the teacher to know who might need additional support throughout the course of the lesson. So I apologize for not framing that for you in the beginning. All right, Tier 1 instruction accelerates learning. When it's used effectively, Tier 1 closes gaps for students and it gets them closer to grade level. We cannot remediate ourselves out of student underperformance. We have to give students grade level instruction in order to close any gaps that they have and provide that just-in-time instruction for them that helps them to close the gaps that they might have. The way that we do that is through just-in-time support, strategic scaffolding, and prioritizing standards. Tier 1, as it accelerates learning, it avoids remediation loops. So you don't kill and drill students. Kids hate that. We did it when we were little, probably because we didn't have a choice not to. You did what the folks told you to do, and that was it because you didn't want to get in trouble. The students that we're teaching today are very different, and they need rationale. They want a reason. They're asking why. How am I going to use this? Why does this matter? And our worksheets that we give them, those things, even textbooks, are not the way that these students are learning well anymore. And I'm not suggesting that they be in front of a computer all day either, but I'm suggesting that we need to create physical, tangible, like I said, tactile, kinesthetic ways for students to be able to get at the instructional request that is at grade level, that is rigorous, that is engaging, that is meaningful, so that they will engage in the task, so that they will do the work. What thoughts, questions, ideas might folks have about these three tenets of accelerating learning through Tier 1? Well, we're going to keep going because you're going to have some opportunity to dive a little deeper. So this is a third grade math content standard. Students need to understand the properties of multiplication and the relationship between multiplication and division. You see the three students, you see the three problems. You could probably very quickly do this math mentally in your head. But the students give you answers of 30, 70, and 180 respectively. What do you need to do based on our Tier 1 acceleration strategies of just-in-time support and scaffolding for each of those students? I'm interested to hear your thoughts around how you would help to remediate or accelerate for these students to close the gap that they are having in this very simple task that they're being asked to do around multiplication at grade level.
Could be asking a student to explain their thinking or how they solved the problem so they can talk out loud and, share their thinking aloud.
Absolutely. When they share that thinking aloud, it gives you as the teacher the cue for how to correct the misinterpretation. So this student who has taken the problem 25 times 5 and given you an answer of 30, if they say, oh, I thought that was a plus sign, you can very clearly say, nope, that is actually a multiplication symbol. Like pluses and multiplication signs do look similar. And here's how you can tell the difference, right? Maybe they just need the clarification of which operation they're being asked to perform. And then go at it again. So being able to ask questions that formatively assess the misunderstanding so that you can build on and help students find success. So for the student who has said 70, they clearly know that 3 times 0 is probably 0 because they didn't give you an answer of 73. They gave you an answer of 70. And then the 4 times the 4 what should be 4 times 3, they've given you a 7. And so being able to look at that problem again, have that student explain how they got that answer, and then giving some just-in-time instruction. It doesn't mean that they need to do 50 more problems like this. It means we need to figure out how to support them in doing the one. And for a student who has answered correctly 180, maybe we provide a few more problems. Maybe we pair that student with a student who is struggling. Maybe we take the opportunity to accelerate that student and take them further. Maybe they get some word problems around multiplication, right? And so everyone is working at their grade level and receiving the support that they need in order to be successful. And so here was my response to this. Students wanting to explain their rationale. Maybe there's a mini lesson or a review. And for student 3, advancing to explaining reasoning and accelerating to double-digit multiplication. So lots of opportunities for students to continue working at grade level and building on their skill sets. Now, this slide is very text heavy. I'll apologize in advance for that, but it's because I needed to give you a high school or secondary example. I know sometimes folks get frustrated because you either get all the elementary or you get all the secondary, but you never get the both. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to look at both the primary, elementary, and the secondary example. But before we go on, Michelle wrote in the chat, I would provide them with manipulative so that they can make meaning of it and using tools, not thinking abstractly. Oh, right. So you can hear me. Wow. So here's our 9th grade example, craft and structure. We want you to determine the meaning of words and phrases as they're used in text, including vocabulary, describing political, social, or economic aspects of history and social science. So then you have this blurb at the bottom, give you a chance to read that. And then here are the 3 student tasks. And your job is to make this task more engaging, more meaningful, and connected to students' lived experience. So I'm going to put our timer back up and I'm going to give you some time to work through this so that you make this very short use of a 9th grade standard with a student task so that we know that they're meeting the standard. We would like for you to take a stab at practicing how you might zhuzh this up and make it a bit more engaging and meaningful for students. What questions do you have before I set the timer? Okay, I give you 3 minutes. right, welcome back. Now, that wasn't a whole lot of time. However, I did want you to just have the opportunity to be able to take a moment, think about the task, and how you might make this more engaging for students in the ninth grade who are, they got to learn U.S. history, the New Deal, World War II, and all the things that go along with that. Any brave souls want to come off mute and talk about their ideas? Or you can also put them in the chat. All right, so I see in the chat, I would let them work with a partner and assign specific roles and tasks. For each role, give them phrases to choose from within the text instead of having them find on their own, and provide a graphic organizer with the sentence frames for the analyzing portion. That's good. That's good. Having students work together sometimes works really well. Sometimes is a challenge. Some students don't want to work with other students, but some kids are really good about it. But giving them the opportunity to talk about what they're reading, to think about with their peers what this looks like, and then breaking it down into chunks. I love the way that you chunked it out, Narit, to give students lots of different entry points into how they would achieve this task. So here's what I came up with. Giving students specific words, right? So much like Nari, what you described, I'm going to pick out the words for them and ask them to rank them in order of importance. What's most important to students? Politics, economics, or the environment? And sometimes we think students don't care about these things. It's just because we haven't framed them in a way that they can really grapple with and wrap their head around it. And then how do these phrases impact your life today? Using clear examples. And then finally, still analyzing in those couple of sentences. And if I took a page out of Narit's book, to have them work with a friend, to have them, take that analysis piece and break it down step by step. Those are just a few ways that we could make that more student friendly. And then asking some questions. What do you notice? What do you wonder? What would you do differently? What if students resist? And what other scaffolds are available? So we always want to be thinking about these things that we work through with students to ensure that we are meeting their needs. And if you don't get the response that you want, that you're not shutting down, but that you are looking for other opportunities to engage students in the conversation and to keep them moving toward the learning. So thank you all for participating in that. And so tier 1 to the max, your intentional planning, your bell-to-bell teaching, your classroom structure with a beginning, middle, mini lessons, and ending with ongoing formative assessment throughout, and really knowing your students well is how you're going to get to those academic strengths, identify those academic struggles, and position yourself to best differentiate learning for your students. I have a list of tier 1 teaching practices. And so going to give you a few more minutes right now on this slide to reflect and implement. If we went back to the beginning where I gave you the opportunity to assess your own readiness for learning, what are some ways that you could do that for your students? If you are a school leader, what are ways that you can assess your staff's readiness for professional learning? So as you look at this list, which of these practices do you already do well? What are some that you'd like to try? Which ones do you want to learn more about? And then I'm going to invite you to create your own learning plan, build a checklist, and then monitor your progress. And as you do that, you want to celebrate your growth, because as teachers, we have to be continuous learners. We have to always be looking for new ways to do what we do, connecting with other educators in the room, learning from one another. I am not an expert at anything. I am a teacher. I always lean into my teacher hat because I think I am a learner first, and that is what makes me a better teacher, is my willingness to learn something new each and every day. So I am going to give you a few minutes to take this slide in and to work on it. You may not get to finish it. You all will gain access to this slide deck so that you can use it in whatever ways are meaningful for you. But right now, if you want to attend to one or two of these tasks so that this learning sticks with you, these resources stick with you, that you have the opportunity to begin to reflect on your own teaching, identify areas where you are strong, and then look for areas where you want to grow. I want to give you a few minutes to do that right now, and then we'll come back and hopefully have just a little bit of conversation and have folks share. It's good. All right, that's our timer. Um, Wasn't a whole lot of time, but maybe enough time for you to at least tried one or answered one of those questions, maybe more. Do we have anybody who wants to share um, maybe something that they do well? And the chat is still an option if you don't want to come off mute.
I'd say that one thing that I definitely do well is the explicit teaching and doing frequent checks. I often use exit tickets and polls throughout the lesson to gauge understanding. So I'll do like a fist of five, or I even have a hand signal where scholars who may not know the answers, they can hold up a zero, like I don't know, one, I think I know, to something so that scholars have a wide range and feel comfortable sharing.
That's beautiful. And Michelle, when you do those frequent checks, how does that support your ability to adjust instruction?
um, I'm able to quickly see what scholars have it, what scholars are on the way, and then those who are just lost in the sauce and I need to like go back and go over it. So I'm able to then either move those scholars on or do a collective reteach for the whole group or for a smaller subset.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is a beautiful way to use that formative assessment data through the frequent checks for understanding. Anybody want to talk about one thing they would like to try? I have two small kiddos here, otherwise I come off mute. One thing I do well is the targeted scaffolding. That basically describes my role in the school. I would like to try using more inquiry. Thank you so much, Nari. And we love the kiddos. So babies, and littles yelling in the background bring my heart joy. So I would not have minded that at all. But thank you for sharing your strength in the classroom. That targeted scaffolding is really important, and you gave a beautiful explanation of the high school standards example in social studies of how you would scaffold. So I was able to see that from you in real time. Thank you for sharing in the group. Yes, and so inquiry is hard, right? Because as the teacher, I think we've been conditioned to always have the answers, but sometimes taking a student question and turning that question back on them, well, what do you think? Have you asked a friend? Where could we find the answer? Right? Those are all great ways to take a question and give it back to a student to give them ownership over how to get the answer. And inquiry is very powerful. Just not being so willing to give the answer. Because I think a lot of times our kids are like, just give me the answer and stop talking. But I think if we press them and we push them by asking more questions, we really will inspire them to think more deeply about the things that we are asking them to do. Thank you all for sharing your responses. And so again, you will gain you will gain access to these resources. Most of them are easily Googleable, but there are a couple of articles that are really helpful. And I pulled from some of these to share this presentation with you today. Some of them have ways that you can plan and prepare to help you organize your instruction to provide powerful Tier 1 to your students. And so you will have access to this. And then that is all. Thank you. It is 3:58. You can get back a couple of minutes in your day If you would like to connect, collaborate, co-plan, or co-teach, you can email me, clarkv@risa.net. I would love to come into your classroom or plan with you or whatever you need. Thank you again for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your summer and an excellent school year.